Hi, I'm Vespera, not Vanessa, not Veronica. Vespera, like the dusk before nightfall. My mother always said it was a pretty name for a girl with serious eyes. I used to like the sound of it. Now I know it was the only thing she ever gave me that she didn't try to take back. The last time I stood in my childhood kitchen, the air smelled faintly of orange oil cleaner and something scorched, burnt edges of a family dinner I wasn't invited to. My suitcase was at my feet, zipped shut, but shaking a little from the tension in my hands. My mother stood by the counter, holding a white envelope. She didn't cry. She didn't even look angry. She looked relieved. "Here," she said, sliding the envelope across the counter like it was a bank transaction. "This should give you a start." Inside was a check, $1,420, not a penny more. The exact total I'd saved up from high school jobs, babysitting, tutoring, sorting mail for the parish next door. I recognized my own handwriting on the deposit slips. It was my money. She just hadn't let me access it until now. I looked up. "You're kicking me out. We're helping you become independent," she corrected, as if she'd rehearsed that line. I waited for my father to say something, anything. He stood behind her, arms crossed, wearing that tired expression I used to mistake for wisdom. His silence used to mean strength. Now I understood. It meant compliance. "What did I do?" I asked, and my voice cracked only once. "What did I do to deserve this?" She didn't answer right away, just sighed and wiped a non-existent crumb from the counter. "You've always been difficult, Vespera, always asking questions, always keeping to yourself, always acting like you're better than the rest of us." Better. I wanted to laugh. I'd spent years dimming myself down to make space for them, to give my younger brother Carson room to shine, to let my mom gush about my cousin Brielle's modeling gigs, to play small when my wins weren't flattering to the family narrative. I buried college acceptances. I skipped my own graduation dinner. I missed out on internships so I could stay close, just in case the family needed me. And still, somehow, I was too much. "Carson's moving back in," she added, like that explained everything. "We need the space." Carson, my younger brother, the golden one, charming, reckless, beloved, the one who totaled 2 cars and still got applause at Sunday brunch for trying his best. The one whose girlfriend was now applying for an admin role at the startup I co-founded, and who didn't even know I was her prospective boss. I picked up the envelope, not because I accepted what it meant, but because I knew there was no use arguing with people who had already decided what story they wanted to tell. "I'll leave tonight," I said quietly. And I did. No yelling. No breakdown. No begging. I packed my suitcase and walked out into the cold without looking back. They didn't even ask where I was going, just closed the door behind me like someone finally taking out the trash. I slept on a coworker's couch that first night, curled up under a donated throw blanket, staring at the ceiling fan spinning like an old clock. I didn't cry, not because it didn't hurt, but because there was nothing left to shed. My whole life had been a slow drip of disappointment. What happened in that kitchen wasn't a surprise. It was the final confirmation of something I'd felt all along. I was never going to be the daughter they wanted, but maybe, just maybe, I could become the woman they never saw coming. The apartment I ended up in wasn't mine, not technically. I subleased it from a friend of a friend who was off doing Teach for America in Nevada. It smelled faintly of old carpet and lemongrass incense, and the kitchen faucet squealed when I turned it too far left. But it had locks and silence, and nobody calling me difficult before breakfast. I unpacked slowly, setting up my few things: a French press, a small stack of hardcovers, 2 blazers that still held the scent of boardrooms and tension. I set my laptop on the thrifted table and pulled up our startup dashboard. Revenue was stable. Client churn was low. The team was growing. No one from work knew anything had happened. They still thought I was between places because of renovations. And I let them think that because I didn't want pity. Pity is just attention with an expiration date. 2 days later, I got an email from HR. Subject line: new hire request. Final screening approval needed. The name hit me like a pin to the throat. Ariana Mills, Carson's girlfriend. The one my mom had been so excited to introduce at Thanksgiving. The one she kept calling sweet, respectful, and going places. Apparently, she was going right into the same company they didn't think I deserved credit for building. The job she applied for, operations coordinator, one floor below me, reporting to my second-in-command. I wasn't her direct boss, but I could be. And HR had included a note. Applicant has family referral listed. Please confirm no conflicts. I stared at the screen. It was almost poetic. My family pushed me out, then tried to send someone in to benefit from what I'd built in my absence. Not openly, of course, not with honesty. But that was never their style. I picked up my phone, scrolled to Carson's contact, and hovered, not to call, just to see if I felt anything. I didn't. Instead, I clicked approve, not because I was being gracious, but because I wanted to see what would happen when Ariana realized she wasn't walking into a job. She was stepping into a mirror. Let's see what happens when loyalty is tested from the other side. The first time I saw Ariana in the building, she didn't see me. She was standing in the lobby talking to someone from payroll, laughing in that too bright way people do when they're trying to sound confident and agreeable all at once. I watched her for a second, not out of malice, but because I was studying the distance between the version of her I'd heard about and the one standing in front of me now. She looked polished, eager, a little nervous. Good. I didn't introduce myself. I didn't step in. I just walked past her, heels clicking steadily on the marble floor, toward the elevator. Let her learn who I was through her onboarding packet. She would see my name eventually, on the welcome letter, the leadership chart, the press coverage we'd just gotten from a Forbes feature. And when she did, that was when the cracks would begin. That night, I got a text from my mother. Ariana started her new job today. She's so lucky to be around people like you, even if they don't know you're connected. Funny, huh? There it was. The lie wrapped in a compliment. The manipulation sandwiched between pleasantries. As if pushing me out of the family made space for a cleaner, more presentable version of me to walk in under another name. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of wine, and pulled up the internal company chat. Ariana had already sent her first team-wide hello message. It was cheerful. It used too many exclamation points, but buried in the middle of her bio was a line that made me tilt my head. Excited to work with a female-led company that champions women who earned their seat at the table. Earned, she wrote. That word lingered in the back of my mind as I scrolled down. The irony? She didn't even know whose chair she was sitting next to. The next morning, I got a Slack ping from Jenna, my operations lead. Jenna. Hey, Ariana just asked if you were the same Vespera from the website. Should I tell her you're the co-founder? Me. You can. Or she'll find out in the Monday strategy call. I'll be leading that one. Jenna. Oh, damn. Got it. I closed my laptop. Then I smiled. Just barely. Because I knew something Ariana didn't yet. When you walk into a house you didn't build, pretending to know its foundation, eventually the floor gives out. Ever been replaced before you even left the room? Sometimes, the most dangerous place to be is inside someone else's version of your life. By Monday morning, Ariana knew who I was. She didn't say it, not directly, but her eyes caught mine when I entered the strategy call, and they didn't let go. Not for the full 45 minutes. I didn't acknowledge her, not because I wanted to be petty, but because I wanted her to feel the silence, to sit in it, to wonder whether it was coldness or restraint. I spoke to the team with my usual clarity, walking through our Q2 goals, client engagement plans, and infrastructure updates. My tone never wavered, but my awareness was sharper than usual, and hers, it flickered between attention and panic. When the meeting ended, she lingered. A few others signed off quickly, their days already stacked with deadlines. Ariana stayed on mute, screen still open. I waited 2 seconds longer than necessary. Then I clicked leave. If she wanted to ask me something, she'd have to find her voice. She did. 2 hours later, Ariana knocked gently on my office door, her face a mix of professional composure and the kind of awkward humility people wear when they've been caught playing a role they didn't realize had a script. "Do you have a moment?" she asked. I gestured to the chair opposite me. She sat down slowly, placing a small notebook in her lap. She didn't open it. "I didn't know," she said, "about you, that you were you." I nodded once. Most people don't, until they do. She gave a tight, nervous laugh, but it died quickly. "I didn't mean to step on anything, or anyone." "You didn't step on anything, Ariana," I said calmly. "You were invited to dance." She blinked. "And I'm guessing you've just realized the song isn't yours." The thing about people like Ariana is that they're not necessarily malicious. They're eager, naive, maybe, opportunistic, but not schemers. They play by rules someone else wrote, never stopping to wonder who that someone was. She shifted in her seat. "Carson didn't mention." "He wouldn't have," I cut in, "because that would require giving credit to the sister he conveniently forgot once she stopped footing the electric bill." Her jaw tightened. That was the moment she realized she hadn't just walked into my company. She'd walked into my aftermath. Later that week, Carson called. Not to apologize, of course not. He called to warn me. "Mom says Ariana's been crying after work," he started, as if her emotional inconvenience was somehow my fault. "You don't have to make it harder for her than it already is." I leaned against the kitchen counter of my quiet little apartment and took a sip of tea. "Did she tell you what she learned this week?" Carson paused. "She said you were cold." I smiled faintly. "Then she's learning." He exhaled, like I was being impossible. "Look, I know things have been tense." "No, Carson. Tense is when you forget my birthday. Tense is when you miss my TEDx talk because you got stuck at the gym. This is clarity. You're being dramatic. And you," I said, "are being predictable." There was a long silence on the line. I could picture him pinching the bridge of his nose, pacing, trying to reframe the story, to feel like he still had control. "You're angry," he said. "I get it, but punishing Ariana won't." "I'm not punishing her. I'm just letting her exist in the same quiet she helped create." Click. That weekend, Ariana requested a private mentorship session through HR. It was the kind of move people made when they weren't sure whether to quit or fight to stay. I approved it, not to gloat, but to study. When she arrived, she brought coffee, one for each of us, both black. She remembered how I took it. I didn't thank her. We sat down, and I let her speak first. "I just want to do well here," she began. "I didn't come to cause tension. I came to grow. And I admire what you've built." I watched her for a moment. Then I asked, "What did Carson tell you about me?" She hesitated. Then, maybe realizing there was no good answer, she said, "That you were the smart one, but intense. That you never made things easy." I nodded. "He left out the part where I paid the mortgage for 2 years so he could go to grad school without debt. That's usually the part people forget." Her face flushed. I let the silence stretch. Then I leaned forward. "Ariana, you're good at what you do. I've seen your numbers. You're organized, fast, and observant. But you're also connected to a story that has done nothing but write me out." She swallowed hard. "Keep doing good work, but never confuse access with approval." She nodded, and we ended it there. 2 nights later, I received a text from Carson. "You didn't have to humiliate her like that. She didn't know. You're the one making this ugly." I didn't respond, but I drafted a note in my phone. What they call ugly is usually just the truth they didn't expect to hear out loud. Ever watch someone finally recognize the room they walked into wasn't theirs to decorate? That's when the real unraveling begins. It started with a portrait, or more precisely, the absence of one. There's a family photo that used to hang above the fireplace in my mother's living room, taken at Claire's wedding reception. Everyone's dressed like it's prom night for grown-ups. My mother in navy chiffon, Carson with a drink in hand, Claire's husband looking like he just came from an Ivy League rowing team, and me, on the edge of the frame, cropped at the elbow. For years it hung like a shrine. And for years, I swallowed the metaphor. But last Sunday, during a quick visit to drop off an old box of Dad's estate papers, I noticed it was gone. In its place, a canvas-printed candid of Claire's new baby and Ariana holding him. My jaw didn't drop, my heart didn't race. I just stared at it for a long second and thought, she's already rewriting the narrative. My mother came downstairs, humming, wearing pearls. She always wears pearls when she wants to look expensive, but reasonable. "Oh, you brought the papers. Perfect," she said, barely looking at me. "Can you leave them on the counter? I have someone coming to install a new filtration system." "Did you take the fireplace photo down?" I asked evenly. She glanced up. "Oh yes, that was years ago. I thought it was time for something fresh. Babies make the house feel lighter." I didn't nod, I didn't blink. Instead, I asked, "What about daughters who paid your mortgage during COVID?" The hum in her throat stopped. "Vespera," she said, drawing out my name like a scolding. "That was a family effort." "No, Mom, that was me. Claire was unemployed, Carson was still in school, and you called me at 1 a.m. when your furnace failed. I wired $4,200 the next morning." She adjusted her necklace and didn't meet my eyes. "You make everything so formal." "No," I said softly. "I just remember everything." The next morning, I found myself replaying her tone in my head. How quickly she brushed past my years of support, my sacrifices, and pivoted to comfort. She didn't want to confront history. She wanted to curate it. And people like her always assume their version is the one that sticks. That afternoon, my assistant Jenna brought in a message flagged as delicate. It was an email forwarded by HR subject line, "Family referral opportunity." From my mother. She had written directly to our company's corporate hiring channel, bypassing me, asking if we might consider bringing on Claire for a flexible client-facing role while she transitions back to work. I stared at the screen for a long moment. No cover letter, no resume. Just, she has great social instincts and deep ties in the community. The gall of it didn't surprise me. The timing did. That same evening, I called Carson. "Did Mom tell Claire about the photo?" I asked casually. "What photo?" he replied, distracted. "The new one, over the fireplace." A pause. "Oh, that. Yeah, I think she sent it to the family group chat." "I'm not in that chat." "Right. Thought you didn't want to be." I said nothing. He added, "It's just a picture, Vess. It's a symbol." He sighed. "Mom didn't mean it like that. She didn't mean the eviction like that either." But here we are. Another silence, the kind that starts to sound like realization. A few days later, a letter came in, handwritten, unusual for her. It was from my mother. Inside was a note, carefully composed. "Vespera, I heard from Carson. You felt hurt about the photo. I didn't mean anything by it. The house needed lightness, that's all. You've always been strong, our rock. I'm sorry if that strength has made people assume you're not soft inside. I want us to be close again. Maybe we can have lunch sometime this month." It ended with a heart. I read it twice, and then I drafted my reply. I didn't send it. Instead, I composed a new internal memo at work. Effective immediately, all family member referrals require full application packets and will undergo external review prior to consideration. The next morning, HR reached out again. Apparently, my mother had called, directly, demanding to know why Claire hadn't received a response. I asked HR to kindly forward her to our legal policy page. No anger, no drama, just structure, just the kind she hates. At the end of that week, Ariana passed by my office again. She lingered. When I finally glanced up, she asked, "Do you have a second?" I nodded. She entered slowly, closing the door behind her. "I had dinner with your mom." I didn't react. She invited me. Said she wanted to know the people in Carson's life. Still, I said nothing. "She asked a lot about you." "She always does," I said flatly. But not like a proud mom, like she was trying to assess damage. I finally looked up. Ariana continued. She said you've always been good at making people feel small when they don't meet your standards. I folded my hands. And what did you say? Ariana paused. I said I'd seen you lead with quiet. That your silence. The morning everything shifted. I didn't wake up with a plan. No master revenge arc. No checklist of retribution. Just a strange, unsettling quiet. The kind that settles into your bones after months of noise, after the shouting, after the blaming, after the silence that follows when you finally stop explaining yourself to people who never listened. That morning, I woke up at my friend Maureen's place, a converted attic above her garage that smelled faintly of cinnamon and old wood. She had handed me the keys the night I got kicked out of my mother's house with a duffel bag and $300. You need space, she said simply, not asking questions, just pressing a warm mug of chamomile into my hands. And now, 2 months later, I had something better than space. I had clarity. Maureen walked in holding her phone, a brow raised. You didn't tell me your sister applied for a job at Haven. I blinked. What? She interviewed with one of our satellite teams last week. Must have been through the external portal. They didn't connect the last names, but HR flagged it when they saw your name as Director of Strategy. I took the phone from her and looked down at the resume on the screen. Claire Halston. There it was. Polished. Clean. Empty. The same woman who once told me, "You're too cold to lead anything," had walked blindly into a company I co-led, thinking she could ride someone else's coattails again. I set the phone down carefully. It would have been easy to reject her on the spot, to call HR, flag the file, and watch the application get swallowed by silence. But silence had been my survival tool for years. It was time to speak with action. I'm not pulling the file, I told Maureen. Let the process continue. Let her walk right in. Maureen just stared. You're going to let her interview? I smiled. The kind of smile I had learned to wear when I already knew the ending. She won't recognize what she's walking into until it's too late. By the following week, Claire had been invited for a second-round interview, scheduled in the main Boston office, where I worked 3 floors up. I didn't plan to sit in. That would be too obvious. Instead, I made sure her interviewer was someone I trusted. Elena, sharp-eyed, no nonsense, with a memory for character flaws that no resume could paper over. I didn't tell Elena everything. I didn't need to. I just said, if something feels off, trust your instinct. Claire came in on a Thursday. I watched her through the glass wall as she sat in the waiting area, legs crossed, perfectly made up, phone in hand, head tilted just enough to look polished, but casual. Like she hadn't thrown me out of the house for being difficult. Like she hadn't told our mother I was probably just bitter about not getting married. I turned away before she saw me. I had nothing left to say to her in person. The interview lasted 40 minutes. Elena came back with an expression like she had just watched a show that promised more than it delivered. She's charming, she said flatly. But when I asked for examples of leadership under pressure, she couldn't give a single one that didn't involve someone else cleaning up her mess. I shrugged. That tracks. She name-dropped someone from our finance team, though. Said she knew your younger brother. I froze. Auden. Yeah, apparently he's dating someone on our payroll. I didn't ask who. I didn't need to. I just felt a knot twist in my chest. Not from jealousy, not even anger, just the familiar sting of betrayal. This time from someone I thought might understand me better than anyone else. I hadn't spoken to Auden in weeks. Not since the family dinner where he said, maybe if you were easier to get along with, you wouldn't be alone right now. Not since the day he watched my mother hand me $300 and told me, well, maybe it's time you learn how normal people struggle. I took a deep breath, let it pass. Then I pulled up the internal hiring portal. Claire's status was listed as pending final review. I clicked decline, not out of revenge, but because a seat in the company I helped build didn't belong to someone who had tried to erase me from the family to impress a man at a barbecue. A day later, I received a call from an unknown number. I let it ring out. Then a voicemail. Vess, it's Claire. Can you please call me? I think there's been a mistake. They said I didn't get the job, but can we talk, please? I deleted the voicemail without listening to the end. 3 hours later, I got a text from Auden. You didn't have to tank her shot, that was low. I replied with one line. She chose image over truth. Now she knows what that feels like. No response after that. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't something I had to endure. It was something I had earned. Some endings don't arrive with closure. No apology, no grand gesture. Just a noticeable absence. The tension stops ringing in your ears. You sleep a little deeper. You realize, quietly, you haven't thought about them in days. That's how it started for me. After I turned down Claire's application, the calls from my family came in waves. Not the warm kind, not even the concerned kind. Just demands wrapped in concern. Warnings disguised as advice. You're being too harsh. She's your sister. Don't ruin her chances. Don't make this personal. But they had made it personal years ago. When I was kicked out with $300 and a hollow, "You're an adult now." When I was told I embarrassed the family because I worked too much and smiled too little. When Auden stood by and watched, I didn't respond to any of it. Instead, I focused on building what I knew they'd never understand. A life that didn't require their validation. 6 months passed. Haven doubled in size. I led 2 product launches, closed our biggest healthcare partnership yet, and onboarded 3 brilliant women from underrepresented backgrounds. Women who, like me, had been underestimated, ignored, boxed in. We built something sustainable, something smart, something quiet and powerful. Then, one Friday afternoon, I received an unexpected email from my mother. Subject line: Claire's having a hard time. I hovered over it for a full minute before opening. Vespera, I know things have been tense, but your sister is going through a lot. She lost her apartment after the breakup. Her job interviews haven't gone well. Auden is still upset with you, and I miss having you home for the holidays. Can we talk? Maybe over dinner? Just the 4 of us. No drama, just family. I read it 3 times. Not once did it say, "We're sorry." Not once did it say, "You didn't deserve the way we treated you." Not once did it say, "You mattered back then," even if we didn't show it. But the door was cracked open. I closed my laptop and went for a walk, letting the wind whip through my coat as I moved through the edge of Boston's brownstone streets. I didn't want to make a decision out of pride. But I also didn't want to return just because someone remembered I existed. That night, I replied, "Dinner is fine, one time. But I don't owe you the version of me who used to stay quiet just to keep the peace." They chose a quiet restaurant, white tablecloths, neutral lighting. My mother wore a brooch she always brought out for moments that mattered. Auden sat stiffly in a navy sweater. Claire wore a smile 2 seconds too wide. We didn't hug. The first 20 minutes were shallow. Updates, questions about work, talk of cold weather. Then came the real moment. Claire looked at me across the table, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her water glass. "I didn't know," she said softly. "About Haven. I applied because it was the only job that looked stable. I didn't connect the name. I wasn't trying to use you." I let her speak. "I was scared. I've made mistakes, but I'm trying." I nodded, just once. "That's good," I said. "But trying doesn't undo what's already been done." Her eyes dropped. "I know." My mother cleared her throat. "We want to move forward, Vespera." "I already have," I said calmly. "No anger, no theatrics, just truth. I'll always be your daughter, but I'm not your fixer. I'm not the fallback plan when your favorite child can't carry the weight. I'm not here to be the quiet one anymore." No one said a word. And that silence, it wasn't awkward. It was earned. After dinner, I paid the bill before they could argue. I didn't do it to be kind. I did it to be final. They had taught me what my worth was in their eyes. And now I was showing them what I valued: peace. As I stepped outside, the chill met my skin with a kind of clarity. I didn't need a dramatic exit. I didn't need revenge burned into the ground. I just needed this: the knowledge that I was no longer asking to be seen. I was already standing in the light. I used to think love meant silence, endurance, and showing up no matter what. But I've learned that real love doesn't ask you to disappear just to keep the peace. You're allowed to walk away from people who only see your worth when they need something. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to know, have you ever been the one expected to stay quiet while everyone else got to shine? Drop a 1 in the comments or share where you're watching from. And if you're on your own journey of healing or rediscovery, you're not alone. If this story resonated, subscribe for more deeply personal stories that speak your truth.